my life, but I'm now live on YouTube. Only 15 minutes late. It's YouTube. Who gives a shit? Nobody's watching. Uh, so yeah, man, it's a tough call to make. Talking about Bone Tomahawk. Let's just jump right in. I'm gonna do a goddamn podcast here. Click the old microphone on. Get rolling on the recording now. Oh. That's right, inmates. We are talking about Bone Tomahawk. This one's from 2015. Stars the Kurt Russell, Richard Jenkins, and Patrick Wilson. Um, as I was talking to the Psycho Bunny Death Cult a moment ago, this offers an interesting quandary as to exactly which um, subgenre or genre as a whole this movie fits into. My man Zach over here thinks of it as a horror movie. I tend to agree with him more out of just and Captain Tony's in the house. What's up, Tony? And Captain Spaulding. You're exactly right, Tony. And I don't know like how many genre actors is required to make an official horror movie, but you've got Sid Haig, who probably had a lot of he's got a huge horror pedigree, is what I'm saying. So as far as like I don't know what other category you would put it into other than Western, but Western is a broad category. You can do like Western romance, Western action. A lot of different stories can take place in the Old West. This one is pretty gnarly, and it's going to get pretty ugly. Tony knows what I'm talking about. David Arquette, another genre actor. Name one movie other than Scream that David Arquette has been in. That wrestling movie where he works at a he cleans shitters, I think. I don't even know the name of that one. Ready to Rumble? I think. I don't know. Anyway, Eight-Legged, that's horror movie. That's what I'm okay, but that is a horror movie. Eight-Legged Freaks. Tony, you're exactly right. Apologies. Okay, anyway, this movie is a Western, starts off in the Old West, and what we get is a couple of cutthroats played by Captain Spaulding, Sid Haig, and the aforementioned David Arquette. Apparently, Tony is some kind of a David Arquette super fan, which I enjoy his work. He was in Ravenous. You're right, Troy. He wasn't. Can we go ahead and put David Arquette as a horror actor? Ravenous, Eight-Legged Freaks, Ready to Rumble, not so much, but still. Of course, Scream, Bone Tomahawk, for Christ's sakes. I like him. I've heard interviews with him. He's apparently batshit crazy, and quite possibly has a couple of screws loose. But I enjoy his work. For what it's worth, he seems to play pretty much the same character all the time, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's keeping him working in Hollywood. Regardless, a couple of cutthroats in the Old West coming up on a camp of dudes that are sleeping, and it's like late in the day, so these motherfuckers have slept in. So the cutthroats come in and like they just start killing these guys and taking what they got. Excuse me. Cutthroats played by Sid Haig and David Arquette, if I haven't already mentioned, as they're pillaging this camp after killing all these poor sleeping schmucks. They hear some horses coming, so they're like, "We got to get the fuck out of here." I don't know where we're at geographically with this, but apparently we're like out on the western fringes of civilization somewhere, which is gnarly. So they're like, we got to go. We can't go that way because that's where the horse sounds are coming from. The posse's coming this way. Well, let's go this way through this weird valley. I don't know where it goes. So they go hauling ass through the valley. As they're going, they start seeing like animal skulls embedded in the valley walls. Start hearing weird noises. The noises that they hear, kind of wolf howl-ish, but not 100% wolf howl-y. Like I feel like this could have been like a French horn or like a harpsichord. I don't even know what a harpsichord is or what kind of sound it would make, but that is the instrument that comes to mind when I hear that sound. It's like a weird raspy howl, and it's kind of and they're Sid Haig is like the salty dog of it. He plays a guy by the name of Buddy, oddly enough. And he's like, "Oh, it's nothing. It's the wind. Come on." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. That's something weird out here." We debated tonight if it was wrong to watch a horror pick on Christmas Eve. We decided no and watched Krampus. Krampus, a great movie, Jim. I've done a full episode on Krampus. It's beautiful. You're gonna love that. And they find the burial mound from Pet Cemetery. That's exactly right, Tony. They happen upon the Micmac burial ground, more or less. They got the weird rock formations, and it's like a circular geometric thing going on. And they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And Buddy is like, "I don't give a shit. The posse's up our ass. We got to move." And David Arquette is like, "This is fucking weird, and I don't want any part of this." So Buddy keeps going. He gets hit in the chest with an arrow, and he's like, "Fuck!" And then he dies. We see one of these Native American guys come out and actually kill Buddy with the titular bone tomahawk. The subtitles bounce between wolf howl and eerie howl. Tony, you must have watched this on Amazon Prime as well, because that's where I watched it, and you're exactly right. Could be a wolf howl, could be an eerie howl, could be a harpsichord, although Amazon Prime never officially identified it as a harpsichord. I just like to think of it as a harpsichord. And again, I have no factual basis to base that on, but I'm going to go with it. So, boom. Buddy, Sid Haig, is out of the equation. Connor's in the house. How you doing, Connor? Hey, congratulations on the new job, Connor. Well done. So Buddy's out of the equation. David Arquette goes hauling ass. Okay, that's pretty scary. I mean, but at the same time, you don't want to invade or be a fuckhead in a Native American burial ground. And I mean, like, if you happen upon it, you can be like, "Oh, whoa, hey, this, I'm gonna go around." Buddy, Sid Haig, is like, "Well, fuck this shit. I'm just going to walk right through," and he starts trampling skulls and shit. You got to show some respect, dude. Don't be a dickhead. Regardless, David Arquette's character made it out. And now we're going to cut to a couple days later. I think they said 11 days later exactly, at a nearby town called Bright Hope. Now, hang out with me on this because we are going to steep ourselves in the day to day drama of Bright Hope. New Mexico or Arizona or wherever it was. Hey, Althea, Alethea. Give me 5 minutes and I will pronounce your name correctly, my dear. But thank you for joining us, and you're welcome, Connor. So here we are in Bright Hope in the Old West. Excellent, small town. Looks like they're having a great time. We're going to meet some of the central characters here. First off, we have the neighborhood bar, and by neighborhood bar, I think it's the only bar in the whole town. It's called the Learned Goat. Although I think the Educated Goat would have been much more funny. The master's degree holding goat is what we'll call this little bar. It's the Learned Goat, and everything is cool. That's like the town hangout / town hall / drinking hole. And it seems like they're having pretty hard times here in Bright Hope because there's nobody in the fucking place. Cut to across town, we're going to meet. I don't know, a very well-to-do couple played by Patrick Wilson and Lillian Sims, and these are the O'Dwyers. You're gonna love these two; they're good folks. Mr. O'Dwyer has his leg in a splint because apparently he was trying to fix. You said, "Yes, I knew it, Alethea. I would get it eventually," and I did. That's what a little can-do attitude can do for you when it comes to pronouncing Alethea's name correctly. So think of that as a tale of triumph. It seems as if the whole town was only about 10 or so people. Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me, Tone. You got the sheriff, played by Kurt Russell, Franklin Hunt, his wife, who is apparently ill at the time. You have a guy named Chicory, who is played by Richard Jenkins. Tony, you saw this movie. Was it just me, or did Richard Jenkins pretty much make this entire movie? I thought he was like the shining gem of the whole movie. I love me some Chicory. I got to get a Chicory T-shirt or something because he was bad. He was the comic relief, but I loved him to death. Anyway, you got Chicory, who is his vice assistant deputy or something like that. Shoot up the scenes. Tony knows what I'm talking about. You also have Nick, who is his actual deputy. You have the O'Dwyers. You have the guy that owns the Learned Goat. You got like the town rich guy who was played by Michael Perry. Now we only get to see this dude for a few minutes. Official backup deputy. You're right, Tom. We only get to see Michael Perry for a few seconds. But anytime Michael Perry is on screen, you know who he is because he was the 80s action star, but only for about 12 minutes. You'll know him from Streets of Fire, Eddie and the Cruisers, um, a score of other movies that don't come to me immediately. But now he shows up in like these weird bit parts in like independent horror movies, and he just happened to show up in this one, and he plays the town rich guy, and he's there at the Learned Goat. So all is well and good. We get to see the O'Dwyers attempt to have sex, and I will tell you, Lillian Sims. I don't know if those were stunt boobs or not, but I enjoyed them quite a bit. So tip of the hat to you, Lillian Sims, for staying in good shape. She's very attractive. But having sex when you've got your leg in a splint, bit of a task, bit of a chore, I would assume. That's got to be a process. You know, you got to get the angles right. 2 thumbs up for Mrs. Sims. I agree, Tone. And that's all well and good now. But the thing is, though, is that Chicory, who is the official backup deputy, goes for one of his late night rambles. And by that, I mean, I'm getting a new tattoo Friday. Well, that's awesome. Connor, I hope it's not the Wendy's logo because you haven't actually started that job yet. But I hope that stop talking about. So I haven't even started talking about sex, Connor. You got to give me 5 minutes before I start talking about sex. Jesus Christ. I'm getting to the sex, and then you can tell me to stop talking about sex, and then I will, but not until I start talking about sex. So the funny part, though, is that he's out on one of his late night rambles. Now, I should mention Richard Jenkins. I mentioned that he made the movie. You'll know him from oh fuck. He has been in a lot of goddamn movies, and none of them are coming to mind at the moment. Step Brothers. He played the stepdad in Step Brothers. He's like a lovable old guy, you know. He's always like a substitute teacher or a stepdad, or he shows up in a lot of. You were still talking. I was thinking about talking about it, Connor. Don't get ahead of me. Anyway, he plays Chicory. He's out on one of his late night rambles, and he happens upon David Arquette just burying suitcases full of something in an open field, which is very strange. So he naturally hauls ass to the sheriff's office, and he's like, "Hey, sheriff, there's some weirdo out there burying luggage, and it's kind of freaking me out a little bit." Now, a couple of things about Chicory. There is a lot of story here. Again, this is a 2 hour and 12 minute movie, and I'm going to have to glaze through a lot of it because I don't want to eat up 2 hours and 12 minutes of your time on Christmas Eve. Hey, my cousin Randy's in the house. What's up, Randy? I hope you're having more fun than I am right now. I'm having a great time. Who gives a shit? Now, the thing about Chicory, though, is that he is a widower and he's got an awful lot of free time on his hands. And he's like, I think he just kind of hangs around the sheriff's office because he really doesn't have anything better to do. And he's kind of, oh, I'm sorry, Randy. That sucks. I have to work in the morning if that makes you feel any better. Chicory doesn't sleep much. He says he doesn't sleep much, Tony, but he spends a good chunk of this movie asleep. So bear that in mind. He's out on one of his late night rambles. He catches David. He goes to the sheriff's office, and he tells the sheriff that the weird drifter guy who's burying luggage in an empty field for no reason is over at the Learned Goat. So the sheriff, Kurt Russell, is like, all right, let's go over to the Learned Goat and talk to this guy. So they go over there. They start talking to this guy. David Arquette is there, introduces himself as Buddy. We know he's not Buddy because Sid Haig was Buddy. I don't have to work till Saturday. Very cool, Connor. he's being shady and lofty. He's only asleep when it's most inconvenient. You're probably yeah, that makes sense, but like 99% of this movie is inconvenient, Tony. I'm sorry. Anyway, he's over there and he's being lofty. Like he won't look at the sheriff when he's talking to him. He's basically being David Arquette. You know, that weird kind of that thing that David Arquette does. A lot of that going on. I don't understand that. But make a long story short, the sheriff is like, hey, how about you come show me where you buried all those suitcases, you fucker? And then David Arquette tries to make a run for it. And then the sheriff shoots him in the leg. And then he's like, well, there you go. Let's take him. I guess he's under arrest. I just shot him in the leg. So let's get him over to the jail there. Now, here's where things start to get weird right off the bat. They take him to the jail, right? He's got a bullet in his leg. Now, there is a town doctor somewhere. I don't know who or where, and it doesn't really matter. But wherever the town doctor is, he's drunk. So they have to go to the next best thing to the town doctor, who unfortunately happens to be Mrs. Dwyer post coitus. So as they're looking around the learned goat, they find just a dude sitting in the corner, and they're like, "Hey, you, go get the town doc. If he's not available or he's hammered, which he is, go get Mrs. Dwyer." So he goes and gets Mrs. Dwyer. I don't know if he even tried the town doc. Regardless, now let's talk about the dude that they sent to get Mrs. Dwyer. Guy by the name of Mr. Brooders. Mr. Brooders is a bad motherfucker. And we know that because he didn't move a muscle during the weird Sheriff David Arquette encounter there at the bar. You know, and he's very well dressed, and he looks like he'd probably kick somebody's ass. So he goes and gets Mrs. Dwyer, and there's a little bit of a sexual, kind of a weird kind of a thing between Mr. Bruder and Mrs. Dwyer right off at the right when she answers the door. Like she answers the door, she looks at him and he looks at her, and there's hey, we may have had sex at some point. I may have seen you naked or masturbated to you or you me. I don't know, but there is something here between us. And Mr. O'Dwyer is upstairs. He's still got his leg in a splint, and he's like, get the fuck out of here. So they take Mr. Bruder escorts Mrs. Dwyer to the jail to extract the bullet from David Arquette's leg. She gets there. That's all well and good. She's working on him. We meet the official deputy, not the backup deputy, but the regular deputy, young kid by the name of Nick. Now, don't pay too much attention to Nick right now, but he's going to he's going to have a bit of a thing here in a minute, folks. So just bear with me. Now, right about this point, she's working on David Arquette. The sheriff is there. He's like, well, we're probably going to have to hang him in the morning. So least you can do is get that bullet out of his leg first. And then sheriff leaves. He leaves Nick and Mrs. Dwyer there at the sheriff's office with the wounded David Arquette. Next morning, we're going to cut right to the next morning. Mr. O'Dwyer wakes up, Patrick Wilson, and he's like, hey, where's my wife? She was just going to the sheriff's office to get that bullet out of the guy's leg. She's still not home yet. So he's like, what the fuck? Where's my wife? Oh, shit. Cut to the sheriff's office. Now, some weird shit happened the night before, and we don't get the full scope until right about now because basically all we see is some stable boy going to look after the horses, and he catches an arrow to the chest, and then somebody jumps out of the shadows and like bone tomahawks him across the neck. Motherfucker. After that, we cut directly to the next morning with Mr. O'Dwyer waking up, and then the sheriff waking up next to his wife, and the owner of the Learned Goat running into his house and being like, Sheriff, we got a problem. So basically what we're going to find out, excuse me, is that something went down the night before. Stable Boy's dead. They go and check on him. He's still dead. He has not gotten back up. So we don't have to worry about zombies just yet. Just yet. Go to the sheriff's office, Mrs. O'Dwyer, the deputy Nick, and the drifter with a bullet in his leg, all gone. fucking gone. History, not even present anymore. A couple of clues, though. A couple of things about the scene that raise suspicion. Number one, arrow, like bow and arrow, Native American arrow, lodged in one of the walls. So sheriff sees it. He's like, look at this fucking thing. Hey, go get the professor. So apparently there is a professor in this town, maybe some kind of a schoolhouse or something, and it's a little Native American guy who will recognize horror fans as Crow Daddy from Doctor Sleep. How you like that shit? It's not actually Crow Daddy, but it's the guy that plays Crow Daddy. Would be cool if that actually was. I mean, technically, it could be Crow Daddy, right? Because he was part of the True Knot and they're immortal. And maybe before he met Rose the Hat, I don't know if you want to draw some kind of a parallel between Doctor Sleep and Bone Tomahawk, but there you go. I just did it for you. So from there, they go get the professor. Professor comes back and he's like, "Yeah, hey, what's going on? Oh, some native tribe ran off with the deputy, the drifter, and the nurse, and we'd like to know which tribe, and we'd also like to know why the fuck they did that, and how we can get them back." So he's looking at the arrow and he's like, "Dude, you guys got a lot of fucking problems because no half-ass civilized tribe shot this arrow. This arrow came from a band of troglodytes, he calls them. I don't know what the fuck a troglodyte is, but it sounds like a nasty customer. It sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings, probably. And I don't want any part of the troglodytes, and neither do you, because he goes on. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, they're nasty. They're nasty business. He goes on to explain that the troglodytes live like way out on the western fringe in what him and his people refer to as the Valley of the Starving Man. That's some scary shit. They're inbred, okay, and they adhere to some very strange practices. Cannibals, of course, I think that goes without saying, and you don't want any part of them. So the sheriff's like, "Well, how do we get our friends back?" And he's like, "You don't." And he's like, "Well, how many are there?" And there's like, "It doesn't really matter how many there are. You go in there with a whole army, and they're still going to wipe you out." And about this time is when Mr. O'Dwyer shows up. He's hobbling in with a weird crutch, and he's like, "Hey, I gotta go get my wife." And he's like, "Dude, you're fucking crippled, and you cannot be going to get the newspaper at the end of your driveway. So just know." And he's like, "I'm going to get my wife, you son of a bitch." So the sheriff's like, "Okay, I will go get his wife and everybody else. He's coming with me because we don't have a choice." Chicory is like, "I'm going too. I'm the official backup deputy. I have to go." He's like, "All right, old man, whatever." Mr. Bruder is like, "I've killed more Indians than anybody here, probably all of you combined. So I'm going too." So now we have like the official posse set up, ready to roll. And off they go. So it's Mr. Bruder, Mr. O'Dwyer, Chicory, and the sheriff. Party of four headed off to the Valley of the Starving Man to kick some troglodyte ass and hopefully get back the wife, the deputy, and the well, who gives a shit about the drifter? But still, you don't want to leave him in the clutches of whomever, the troglodytes, right? Who knows what the fuck they're going to do? So this is the part that I'm going to glaze over because this is probably a good hour's worth of the movie. From there, we have like, I guess, kind of a road trip movie where these four they've got like a 5-day like ride ahead of them. And we get a lot of backstory from these dudes. We find out that Mr. O'Dwyer has an opium tincture, and it's for the pain of his compound fractured leg. He's hitting that pretty hard. Sheriff has to confiscate it because he's like, "I don't need you spilling out of that saddle when things get rough." And he's like, "It's just for the pain." He's like, "Oh, just fucking give it to me." So it's kind of like a weird standoff. We also find out that Mr. Bruder has killed quite a few Native Americans, to include women and children, and there is a backstory behind that, has to do with his mother and sisters being murdered, presumably by natives, at an earlier point prior to this movie. What else do we have? Chicory. He's the comic relief, and I love me some Chicory, and he's always got something fun to say. For example, at one point, during the confiscation of the opium tincture, Mr. O'Dwyer loses his cool, and he's like, "You're an imbecile! Get away from me, you dumb imbecile!" And then after Mr. O'Dwyer apologizes, Chicory's like, don't worry about it. My wife used to call me a dumb imbecile. Kind of felt good to hear it again. I got a little chuckle out of that. It was good. So that's like a good hour of the movie. And it's not to say that that's bad. It's just that's why I hesitate to call this an action film. But moving right along, we get to a part where Mr. O'Dwyer's leg is consistently getting worse and worse and worse, and it's getting pretty bad. And at one point, he starts to fall behind on the horse, and they take a look at the leg, and they're like, "Dude, that is infected, and it is pretty gnarly. You have probably got yourself some gangrene, amigo. Good chance that when we get back to town, if we make it back, if we survive this fucking nonsense, we're gonna have to cut that goddamn leg off." Now, something worth mentioning at this point is that Chicory, I think he kind of mentions in passing that he did some surgery during the war, which I assume to be the Civil War, which makes him a Civil War surgeon, which is probably one of the scariest jobs to have in all of history, if you ask me. Sawbones and hasty amputations and screaming dudes and body part piles. Oh, fuck. I just grossed myself out. Anyway, so that's something worth mentioning. Every time this topic is brought up in front of Chicory, he kind of gets like this weird far off stare, and he's like, "I was in the war." And, oh, it's scary, man. You don't want any part of that business. Um, Now they camp at one point with these guys, with amongst themselves, and in the middle of the night, a couple of Mexicans roll up. Two guys on foot, and just out of the middle of the fucking desert, here they come, and they're like, "Hey, uh, sorry, we were gonna announce ourselves." And they've all got guns pointed at them. Like, what are you doing out there, amigos? I don't. What's going on here? And before they can like actually start talking to these guys or asking them questions, Mr. Bruder just blows them both away. Pop, 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 kills them both on the spot. Um, which caused okay, so now we have like a weird standoff between Mr. Bruder and the sheriff. Sheriff's like, "You had no reason to kill them," and he's like, "Hey, let me explain. Those two are scouts for a raiding party that are probably drawing near. We need to kill this campsite, go somewhere else, and not have a fire tonight." So they do just that. They kill the campsite, go somewhere else. Sure as shit, later on that night, they get half-ass raided, I guess, and a bunch of guys try to jump them in their sleep. They manage to fight the guys off, but the guys, surviving guys, make it out of there with their horses. So now our four amigos are stuck on foot. That completely sucks, especially for Mr. Dwyer, who has a compound fracture of the leg. So off they go now on foot towards the Valley of the Starving Man. So they're fine. They're moving on foot. They're like still a day or two out, day and a half out, something like that. Now, the problem here is Mr. O'Dwyer. He's got that compound fracture, and it is fucking him up big time. In fact, he like keeps stumbling and tripping as he goes, and he's falling farther and farther behind the other three dudes. And at one point, they're like, "Hey, man, we're gonna mark the path as to like which way we go and stuff. You just keep up as you can. When we make camp, maybe you can catch up to us then." And he's like, "Yeah, great, fine." So eventually, they make camp just as they hit the valley. So they're like, "Okay, it's like noon. We're going to sleep the rest of the day. Once the sun sets, then we're going to try to finagle our way into the valley and see what's going on. It's going to be great. Scary stuff in there, you know." So that's what they do, and that's about the time that O'Dwyer catches up. Now, when he catches up, he's hurting bad. and he's making a lot of noise as he goes. So like, dude, just fucking chill right here for 2 seconds. Let's take a look at that leg. Chicory takes a look at the leg, and he's like, that is fucking gangrene, dude. I'm going to suggest that I go ahead and cut the fucker off right now. And he's like, no, 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 no. You're not cutting my leg off, you son of a bitch. Take it easy there, Civil War doctor. You are not going to cut my leg off just yet. But they give him as much. They give him what they refer to as 2 fingers, which I think is like that much. I don't know what that entails of the opium tincture, and they take the rest with them. They do reset the bone, which knocks him the fuck out, either with the opium or the shock, and he sleeps like all through that day and into the next night. He's out like a light. So good for him. I imagine it looks like it hurt like a son of a bitch, right? Fuck God. Resetting a bone in the old I mean, it's better than amputation, I suppose. That's got to really hurt. Jesus fucking Christ. All right, so all that being said, now there's only 3 of them. You got Bruder, you got Chicory, you got the sheriff. They take off into the valley of the Hungry Man. Come across the old Micmac burial ground, very scary. Come across the animal skulls embedded in the valley walls. Whoa, fuck. What the fuck is this? Start hearing that howling sound. They go in through the night, and the howling sound is like sometimes it sounds far away, other times it's up close. Next day rolls around, and now they're like, okay, we're here. This is where they look up and they see like a cave mouth in the side of the valley, and they're like, that's probably where they're keeping them or where they are. I don't know what's fucking going on. And that's when the ambush springs. Mr. Bruder gets he doesn't last too long at all. He's the first one to get taken down. Arrow, 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 and then they drag him under some cover, and he's like, "Give me some dynamite. I intend to kill as many of these guys as I can." So they give him the dynamite, and then the sheriff and Chicory go hauling ass out of the valley, hoping to at least save their cans. They get out of the valley just as Mr. Bruder and the dynamite they don't do shit really. And one of the troglodytes pops up and kills. There actually is a bone tomahawk that is used quite prevalently in this movie, and it's used to kill Mr. Bruder. It sucks because he was going to be our big action star. I kind of felt like, and he was going to be the badass of the movie and save everybody. But now he's dead. So long, Mr. Bruder, and your flashy suit and your fun what do you call that telescope. So he's out of the equation. The sheriff and Chicory make it out of the valley. As they come out, though, they get hit with another ambush. More arrows. Both of them get knocked out, and once they get knocked out, they get like roped up, and then they start being hoisted up towards the mouth of the cave. Do not let these motherfuckers take you alive. The luckiest guy in this entire movie is Mr. Bruder, and he's dead. Everybody else, whoa, bad stuff is about to happen. Really bad stuff is about to happen to these dudes, inmates, and psycho bunnies. So from here, they get them up there, and once they get them up there, they put them in a cage, like a cage cell type of a thing. And right across from their cell, they see Nick, the deputy, and Mrs. O'Dwyer. And they've been held captive there for some time, obviously. Mrs. O'Dwyer seems pretty cognizant. Nick is completely unconscious. And this is, where things get pretty ugly. So the sheriff and Chicory come to, and they're like, oh, fuck, what the fuck? And they're like, yeah, they got you alive, and this really sucks. Mrs. O'Dwyer explains that they ate the drifter. They killed him and ate him, and that really sucks. But he was kind of a piece of shit anyway, so who cares? His real name was Purvis. Purvis, by the way, which is a fun name. Hey, Purvis. Yeah, if you had a friend named Purvis, you would have to call him either Pervo or Pervy for short, right? I feel like that's the only way to go with Purvis. I don't know. Hey, don't name your kids Purvis, by the way. If you're thinking about it, don't even do it. You're asking for trouble. So they got him. They got him in the cage. They're talking to Mrs. O'Dwyer in the cage across the way there, and she's like, "Dude, these motherfuckers. Let me tell you about these guys. These guys are 100% insane in the membrane. They ate the goddamn drifter. I don't know if you saw the leader, but he has like grafted boar tusks coming out of his face like a fucking psycho. And dude, we're all in trouble now because we were counting on you guys to come save us, and there you are in the cell next to us. So welcome to fucking hell, I guess. I don't know. Now, as they're having this conversation, here comes Bortusk and a couple of his henchmen, and they open up the cell across the way, and they take Nick out. Now, I am not the squeamish type, psycho bunnies and padded room inmates, but having seen this movie, I watched this movie last night. Having seen it before when it first came out, I had some serious thoughts about fast forwarding through this part. I did not. I did not do that because I wasn't going to pay you the disservice of having me gloss over it. So I'm now going to tell you in precise detail what happens to this young man. And I'm going to tell you up front, it's bad. It is bad, and it is depicted in its full grotesque, gruesome, very graphic glory. So it's about to go down. They pull him out of his cell. He's delirious. He's got some kind of a. I think he was sick or something. He's on. He's not even awake. As they pull him out, Sheriff and Chicory start screaming at him to wake up, as if he's going to suddenly come to and fight these guys off or something like that. He does wake up as they're kind of shuffling him around. He's like, Sheriff, let me tell you what's going on. That drifter guy, his name was Purvis. He's a real piece of shit. He killed a bunch of people. He deserved to die. And he's like, okay, I got you. He's like, Sheriff, make sure all my belongings get sent back to my brothers in Wisconsin, as if Nick knows he's about to die, which he is, by the way, in a very gruesome fashion. As he's like having this conversation with the sheriff, they're ripping the clothes off him. They're stripping him down naked, and he's kind of in and out of it. He seems like he's drunk or something like that. Once they get him naked, they kind of hold him up and make him face the sheriff as if to continue his conversation. While the conversation is happening, they full on scalp him. And I don't mean like, I don't know what scalping entails 100%. I always thought that it was like just like they would cut like the top part of your head, like I don't know, like the middle part. I don't know, even know, but they like do like the whole scalp. They like, and they peel it back while he's conscious, and he's screaming in pain as they do it. I know that sucks. That's a dick move, to say the least. But they're just getting warmed up here, okay? Because they take the scalp, they wad it up, and shove it in his mouth, okay? That's not the end of it. They then take like a giant bone uh, nail stake type of a thing, and they then nail his own scalp into his mouth with a big with the titular bone tomahawk. Bang, bang, and he's screaming the whole time, looking at the sheriff as this has happened. That's bad. That looks miserable. It looks painful. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But again, we're not done yet, inmates and psycho bunnies. We're just getting warmed up here. Now, he's still alive. He's still screaming, and he doesn't really have the strength to like thrash about or anything, but he's still conscious. At this point, naked, sands the top of his head with it nailed into his own mouth. They then hoist him upside down, and the leader, the guy with the bone tusks, then like splits him down the middle, and it's not a clean split, boys and girls. Think about Terrifier and the way the blonde went. It's basically the same thing, only not as much fun. Not that that was fun. Well, that was kind of fun because it was a clown doing it. So everything's more fun with clowns. These are troglodyte Native Americans. That is not fun. These guys are fucking angry, and they split him down the middle and peel him like a banana while he's still alive. That's gross and disgusting and painful, and that is, I'm not doing this justice, this kill scene. It is bad. It is really bad. Uh, and the whole time this is happening, the sheriff is screaming at Nick about how the cavalry from Gaston is going to come and butcher all these guys. That's not true. He knows it's not true. He's just trying to make the kid feel better. But this is quite possibly one of, if not the worst death scenes I've seen in a very long time. Name me a worse one. If anybody's seen this movie, give me a death scene that is worse than this one, because I can't think of any off the top of my head. That is bad. That is a bad fucking death scene there, kiddos. Woo! And that scene alone, I feel like makes this a horror movie. Okay, that's bad. That's just that's just the beginning, because we still have Mrs. O'Dwyer, Sheriff, and Chicory in these cells, and who's going to get that treatment next? I wonder. I don't know. Right about now, we're going to cut back down across the valley where Mr. O'Dwyer is just now regaining consciousness. Wakes up, he's hobbling along. He's in a lot of pain. He's got his gun, and like he takes 2 steps and then he collapses. Gets up, takes 2 more steps, then collapses. And this goes on and on and on for the entire day. Towards the end of that day, though, he like takes 2 steps, collapses, starts. He went into the valley where all the animal skulls were. He saw like the weird crevice that everybody went to and saw all their stuff. Because when the troglodytes took them, they just like dropped all their stuff like it was garbage and then hauled them up to the cave mouth. So he sees that and he's like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go around the backside. So he like hobbles his ass around the backside where he kind of sort of half-ass catches one of the troglodytes by surprise, shoots him, hobbles up over to him to inspect the dead body, make sure he's dead, as he should, and notices that this troglodyte has like a weird bone graft thing in his voice box. It's like in his neck. So he's like, what the fuck? What is that? Some kind of shit. He carves it out. And now whenever he blows into this weird bone thing, it makes that howling sound. So now he's like, I got you now, you fucking assholes. I'll make the howling sound. You cocksuckers will come to me and I will shoot you all in the face. So he does just that. Like 2 or 3 more come down running at him, shoots them in the face. He's doing pretty good for being crippled and hobbling his ass through the desert. Now we're going to cut back up to the cave where the prison scalping, taint ripping situation was. Now, the sheriff and Chicory managed to keep the remainder of the tincture of opium on their persons whilst they were incarcerated. So they very quickly devised this rather ingenious scheme. I don't think it would have really worked with Mrs. O'Dwyer about trying to poison the rest of the troglodytes there. So the next time the troglodytes come walking through the little jail cell, they put on this very fun little act about, the sheriff's going to drink it and Chicory's trying to take it away when they're both trying to drink it. No, give it to me. And then the troglodytes open the cell and they're like, give me that shit. Neither one of you is going to drink it. Now, there's 3 troglodytes in the cell area at this point. One of them takes like a good pull. The other one pounds most of it. And then the third one, like, there's not much left, so he just takes a little sip. And they're like, stuff tastes like shit. So they take the flask that it was in and throw it in the fire. After that, they leave. And Mrs. O'Dwyer's like, that first guy's going to lose consciousness for a very long time. Second guy's going to be dead within 24 hours. I don't think the third guy's going to have much of an effect. So after that, they're like, okay, well, that's, we're making progress here. How many of them do you suppose there were? Probably 12 to start with is what she says. So right off the bat, we got the 2 the brooder killed. We got the 2 more that they killed. So they're down to probably about 7 is what they're thinking. Now, they're not privy to the information that Mr. O'Dwyer has already killed 4 or 5 of them on his way up. So they're sitting tight. We get some jail time conversation between these guys about what they're, in the afterlife, and this is really going to suck when he scalps me and all that shit. Flea circus talk from Chicory. It's all well and good. From there, we're going to cut back to Mr. O'Dwyer. He sees the mouth of the cave. He's down in the ravine just outside of it, and he's hobbling his way up. And every now and then he gives a blast on the weird throat harpsichord thing, which causes the troglodytes to come down to see what's up, in which time he shoots them in the face and kills them. And that's pretty cool. So at this point, he's probably got like 5, I think, which is a pretty good run considering he's a cripple. So at this point, Boar Tusk, the leader, he's still up there. He's probably got 2 other guys with him. So we're going to cut to up there where Boar Tusk has realized that the shit that the other guys drink is killing them. So he drags one of the dead bodies into the cell holding area, and he's like, "What's up with this?" They don't know what the fuck he's talking about. So that he just opens the cell. This part's pretty gruesome too, actually. Drags Kurt Russell out, rips his shirt open, and cuts him like underneath the rib cage. Goes and gets the flask out of the fire and shoves it into the incision. Painful, real motherfucker. That sounds like, and it feels like, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's probably life saving because that more than likely cauterized the wound. So that's pretty cool. Saved Kurt Russell's life. But then he starts like choking him with his foot and shoots him in the hand. He shoots him in the gut. About this time, the gunshots are coming in from outside. Mr. O'Dwyer has made his way up to the opposite side of the cave and is basically killing his way into the cell holding area. Now, at this point, Boar Tusk shoots Kurt Russell, the sheriff, right in the gut, and it's like a mortal wound. Sheriff's like, oh, and he's being choked. Mr. O'Dwyer comes around the corner, sees Boar Tusk standing on the sheriff, and shoots him. Knocks him down, and the sheriff like does like a twisty move on him and grabs the bone tomahawk and then just starts hitting Boar Tusk in the head until his head explodes like a melon. That's pretty much the end of your tribe right there. They think at this point there's probably 3 left, so they're like, oh, it's pretty. There's still some of them out there. So Mr. O'Dwyer gets his wife out, gets Chicory out. The sheriff is like, "Hey, man, I'm not going to make it. I got a fucking flask lodged in my rib cage here. I've been shot in the gut and the hand, and I'm probably done for here, guys. So why don't you guys go ahead and take off? I'm going to make sure these other 3 guys are dead because I don't want them knowing. I don't like them. I don't like them at all. I don't care for them, and this cannibalism shit, all that stuff." No good. So I'm going to kill them off, and then I'm probably going to die here. So why don't y'all head on back to Bright Hope and have a good one. So peace out, homies. And they're like, yeah, I mean, funny thing about this, they have Mrs. O'Dwyer there, who is some kind of a nurse type situation. Now, you would think they would at least have her give him a once over, see if maybe we can do something to get him out of there. Instead, they're like, "Love you, man. Hey, catch you on the flip side, baby." And they just walk right the fuck out of there. Even Chicory, who was like the best friend of the sheriff, he's like, "I agree, sheriff, and the backup deputy should probably oversee this operation. So bye-bye." And they just leave him there. And I mean, you would think they would at least make an argument or something. "Oh, you got to come with us." "No, no, no." "Oh, come on with us." "No, no, no." At least make it look like you give a shit. That's what I'm saying. I don't know, man. They just leave them there, and then they go walking down the hill. And as they're approaching the beginning of the canyon, you hear 3 gunshots, and they all look up at the cave mouth, and they're like, "Hey, that sheriff is a stand-up dude with a fucking flask lodged in his midsection, and he probably is dead now. So, peace out, sheriff." And then that's it. That's the end of your movie, man. It's a great movie. It's definitely worth watching. It's 2 hours and 12 minutes long. Probably, I guess it's a horror movie because I don't know what else to call it. Tony knows what I'm talking about. I feel like if nothing else, man, just for that one kill scene, it is definitely a horror movie because that is bad. I say it's a good show. You should definitely check it out. It is streaming presently on Amazon Prime. Be prepared though. 2 hours and 12 minutes. I'm going to say a good hour and a half of that is just four dudes in the saddle, with the drama that would build around that. There's all kinds of side stories that I glazed over. Bruder apparently at one point hit on O'Dwyer's wife, and she refused him, and he punches him in the face because of that. Some kind of weird high school drama. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. But none of it is really that relevant to the story. So I feel like a lot of this movie could possibly be fast forwarded through if you've already seen it once. Getting to that kill scene is pretty rough. Good show. Definitely check it out. I'm going to take myself a little break and I will come back with some other stuff. I feel like I probably lost like chat capabilities. I don't know. Is anybody out there still watching? And if so, are you trying to chat with me? Because I'm not getting any chat, any kind of chat, anything. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate you watching this. If you are still watching, if anybody's still out there, um, thank you for joining me. I will be here next week. It's going to be New Year's Eve. I don't know if the other two knuckleheads are going to show up or not. I don't blame them if they don't. I'm whatever. The only reason I do it is because I have to work in the morning. But I will definitely be here. I don't know what I'm doing for January yet. What should I do for January? I kind of feel like I'm in the mood for some high school horror movies. What do you guys think of that? You probably can't tell me. I can't read your fucking chat messages right now, but I feel like some high school. I've got a couple of titles in mind. Does anybody have a problem with high school horror movies? What's a good one to start off with? Zombie High. That one's kind of stupid. I got it. We're gonna do Detention next week with I don't know. I don't even know who's in it now. Dane Cook is in it. He plays the principal. I don't know if I want to do Detention now. Now that I think about it, not that I have anything against Dane Cook, but that is a very involved movie, and I'll be hopping all over the goddamn place. What is another good? I don't know. I don't even know if I want to do high school horror movies now that I think about it. That's a good one though. That's a good show. I don't know if anybody out there has seen Detention. It's a pretty good show. I need a theme for January. I don't want to do high school horror movies. I just decided that. What about erotic horror movies? Erotic thrillers? I don't want to do that either. That sounds good on paper, but now that I think about it, most of those movies are pretty crappy. What if we did Best of 2019? That sounds good. What would be a good show to start us off with Best of 2019? Us comes to mind. Dr. Sleep. Well, a lot of these movies aren't accessible yet, though. All right, hold on to that. Let's do instead. Could do creature features. Could go back to public domain. Always a lot to talk about in the public domain. It's been a while. You know what? No, we'll save that for February. I was going to say we should do a franchise month, but I think I'm going to save that for February. Instead, January will be the month of fucking. I don't want to do ghosts. I just thought about ghosts. There's some good ghost movies out there. Come on, man, think of something. I don't want vampires. Done vampires. Done werewolves. Done ghosts. Serial killer. True crime. Do true crime. January. What's a good true crime movie? We're gonna do true crime January. Join us next month or next week. Well, next month. Join me next week, probably by myself, for that Jeffrey or that Ted. That fucking. I should have thought of this before I even start. Hold that thought, goddammit. What the fuck is the name of that goddamn True Crime January is what it's going to be called. Let me log on to Netflix real quick here. Twisted Bizarre. It's the, you know what I'm talking about? It's the Ted Bundy movie on Netflix. I believe it's called Twisted and Bizarre. It's got James Hetfield in it. Sorry about the close up here. I'm trying to type. Hold on. I'm going to tell you right now. It is called fucking. Sorry, I'm usually much more prepared than this. The Witcher just came out. If anybody gives a shit about that. There's another one. Oh, yeah, we saw that. Hang out for just a second. What the fuck is the name of it? It's got James Hetfield in it. Zac Efron, I think, is the name. I'm sure you guys are all screaming at me right now, but for some reason the chat log is completely shut down on YouTube and the Death Cult. So I don't know. I'm gonna tell you the name of this fucking movie. Bear with me, inmates. What do you think of this tie, by the way? Pretty cool, huh? Oh, this is a disaster. No. It's the fucking Ted Bundy movie, man. All right, hold that thought. I'm going to tell you what it is right now. Extremely wicked, shockingly vile. True crime next month here in the Padded Room. Join me next week, New Year's Eve, for Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. The Ted Bundy situation. We'll see you then. Thank you again for joining me.